Today's November 15th, 2012, and we're at the TIFF Bell Lightbox in Toronto. My name is Dave Frigette, and I'm the Director of Business Affairs and Certification at Téléfilm Canada. As a member of Téléfilm's Management Committee, I'm pleased to welcome you to our organization's 4th Public Assembly. The 2009 meeting took place in Montreal. The 2010 Assembly was held in Halifax. And last year's event was in St. Boniface, Manitoba. And here we are in Toronto. The goal of this meeting is to allow local communities and Canadians across the country to become more familiar with Téléfilm's goals, strategies, and results as they're presented in our 2011-12 annual report. Complete cinephile, he's headed the prestigious Toronto International Film Festival since 1994, and in that time has made the non-competitive event a must-attend for the world's film community. Please welcome Piers Handling, Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Toronto International Film Festival.
Thank you very much, Dave, and welcome to this public assembly that kind of has a Socratic ring to it. So I like that, that use of terminology. It's the first time you've been in Toronto, as Dave just said, so welcome to TIFF Bell Lightbox. It's really wonderful for us to actually host an event like this. We've had a very long and fruitful relationship with Téléfilm over many, many years. We both obviously share a common goal, and I know all of you do as well, to create a vibrant, strong, and healthy Canadian film industry, making films that are being seen by not only Canadians, but are being seen by international audiences around the world. Over the last year at the festival alone, we had 7 joint initiatives with Téléfilm Canada, including things like Talent Lab, Talent to Watch, Rising Stars, and Téléfilm Canada Eye on TIFF. And under Carol's leadership, Téléfilm has set out to support not just the established filmmakers, but rising, new, young, emerging talent. And we've obviously applauded that as well. The room for new voices is absolutely essential to push us forward into the future. And so I applaud Téléfilm, Michel, and the entire staff for those initiatives. And I know many members, I saw lots of people coming in that I obviously recognize, and some people I don't recognize. So I welcome all of you as well. And I know that you're huge supporters of TIFF, as you are of Téléfilm Canada. So thank you so much for your support over the many years, not just the film festival, but also the year-round activities. So welcome to the assembly. I hope you have a wonderful assembly, and I'll just do a couple of blatant pitches before I leave. Canada's Top 10, our annual event, is coming up. We're actually releasing the list of films on the 4th of December, showing all of those films in January, so please come to that. And if you haven't seen the Bond event, the gallery show is downstairs, and we're showing all of the Bond films. So after the assembly is over, if you're still in the mood, please pop down to see the James Bond show. It's absolutely fantastic. So a big welcome to all of you. Have a wonderful assembly. I wish I could stay, but I have another meeting. I may pop in at the very end to see how everything is going. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Piers. Il me fait maintenant plaisir de vous présenter le président du Conseil de Téléfilm, M. Michel Roy. Monsieur Roy is a director emeritus who has worked both in the private and public sectors. He's been chair of the Téléfilm board since 2007, and his 5-year term ends this month. And we've just learned that he will stay on in his position for another 5 years. 2 consecutive terms for a total of 10 years. That's a first for Téléfilm's board of directors. Félicitations, Monsieur Roy. Monsieur Roy, nous vous écoutons.
Bonjour, Mesdames, Messieurs, et bienvenue à cette 4e Assemblée publique annuelle de Téléfilm Canada. Je salue tous les clients et partenaires de Téléfilm présents dans la salle aujourd'hui. 2 years ago, we launched a corporate plan titled Fostering Cultural Success, which aimed to stimulate demand for Canadian content, both at home and around the world. We wanted Canadian content to be seen everywhere and on all platforms, and that it be recognized for what it is, content that is among the best in the world. We especially wanted Canadians to be proud of Canadian content and to embrace even more fervently these works inspired by their reality, their imagination, and their experiences. Without modifying Téléfilm's core mandate, we have broadened our vision to take into account the way the industry is evolving and its environment. The Canadian industry has definitely come of age. It has reached a level of development marked not only by the quality of its products, but by their quantity and variety. And all regions of the country contribute to this development, from British Columbia to Newfoundland and Labrador. We have changed over the last few years. We have dared to change, as we've stated in a variety of forums. We have granted outstanding companies more autonomy. We have reoriented our programs and processes in order to better encourage and reward success. We have created new financial tools, several of which are aimed directly at emerging talent, and we now support a broader range of productions. We have rethought the way we measure success in order to better recognize the work done by Canadian creators and entrepreneurs. And finally, we have put an emphasis on national and international promotion, and we're just starting. L'exercice 2011-2012 a donc été fructueux pour l'avancement de notre plan d'entreprise, comme investisseur, promoteur, source de référence et administrateur. Ce sont les 4 rôles que nous assumons avec rigueur et avec beaucoup de fierté. Nous avons entrepris une réforme en profondeur de l'ensemble de nos programmes de financement pour les rendre plus conformes à notre vision d'entreprise. Nos critères encouragent aujourd'hui les entreprises les plus performantes, les talents les plus prometteurs et les événements promotionnels qui contribuent à une réelle mise en valeur de notre patrimoine audiovisuel. Nous nous sommes aussi assurés que toutes les collectivités aient accès à nos ressources, dont les communautés en situation linguistique minoritaire, les communautés autochtones et les communautés multiculturelles. As chair of Telefilm's board, I'm also very pleased that more funding is now available for low-budget films. I'd also like to point out that emerging filmmakers can now take advantage of a new program targeting emerging talent, leveraging digital platforms to produce, distribute, and promote features. Launched this year, our program Redesign initiative was a major challenge, requested by the industry following extensive consultation. And we teamed up with clients throughout the year in order to maximize our capacity to invest in production despite the difficult financial environment we operate in. Our corporate plan also yielded other innovative initiatives in 2011-2012 that are worth highlighting. As I announced during our last annual public assembly in November 2011, we put in place a new success index for feature films that we fund. What I like about this index is that it is really inclusive, and it allows us to measure the results of our collective efforts. In addition to box office results, the index factors in domestic and international sales across all platforms, selections and prizes at national and international festivals and events, as well as the ability of production companies to obtain funding from private sector and foreign sources. With an annual budget of around $110 million, it's only normal that, more than ever, Telefilm is looking to regional, national, and international partnerships in order to leverage every single dollar invested. In 2011-2012, members of the Telefilm board supported the creation of our Talent Fund. This is a private donation fund that targets production and promotion, and which the CRTC has recognized as a certified independent production fund. The initiative was enthusiastically supported by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. 5 senior executives from all regions of the country agreed to serve on the honorary committee that aims to encourage businesses to invest in Canadian content. I'd like to thank them for their outstanding commitment. I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge a member of this committee, the Ontario representative, Dr. Anil Gupta, Medical Director of Clinical Cardiology at the Trillium Health Centre, who is with us today. Welcome, Dr. Gupta. The Talent Fund's goal is to put $5 million per year at the service of seasonal as well as emerging Canadian filmmakers. and to ensure that there is an audience for their films. Along the same lines, I would like to recognize the private and public companies that supported our recent red carpet events in Ottawa and across the country. It is a long list, bear with me, but they are the ones that really make it possible. Mongrel Media, Entertainment One, Alliance, Astral, Rogers, Zip.ca, Caramel Films, First Take, Microscope, Enbridge, the Canada Media Fund, CBC Radio Canada, the National Arts Centre, the Ontario Media Development Corporation, the film agencies from Alberta and Newfoundland and Labrador, and the cities of Calgary and St. John's. And thank you also to the Rogers Group of Funds and the National Film Board of Canada, who joined us to renew the theatrical documentary program. Si la dernière année nous a permis d'avancer à grands pas dans la réalisation de notre plan d'entreprise, le Conseil et la direction de Téléfilm ont visé l'équilibre en matière de financement et nos frais d'administration sont demeurés à 6 % de notre budget. Nous avons agi avec prudence et rigueur dans un contexte économique exigeant et un environnement toujours changeant. I have been greatly helped in my work as chair of Telefilm, thanks to the support of a dedicated and experienced board. Please allow me to introduce the board members who are with us today. She's our vice chair of the board. She's a specialist in intellectual property law for a broad range of industries, including knowledge management. From Toronto, Elise Ornstein. A communications and marketing specialist who works in Vancouver and who chairs the Strategic Planning and Communications Committee, Ms. Marley Oden. A Halifax lawyer, he asked me to mention from Stuart McKelvey, who chairs the Governance Committee, Grant Macon. Three members could not be with us this afternoon. One is Ram Raju, an education and digital media specialist from Ottawa, Yvon Bélanger from Quebec City, an accountant and the chair of our Audit and Finance Committee, and Tom Perlmutter, Government Film Commissioner and chair of the National Film Board of Canada. L'année qui s'amorce va nous permettre de poursuivre la refonte des programmes. Nous voulons devenir un partenaire encore plus efficient et simplifier notre façon de travailler ensemble. Mais le plus grand défi, et Carole va vous en parler davantage dans quelques minutes, ce sera celui de rejoindre les auditoires. Nous voulons que le contenu canadien devienne celui que les Canadiens préfèrent à tout autre. C'est dans cet esprit que nous avons organisé le mois dernier un premier symposium sur la promotion du contenu canadien en collaboration avec le Fonds des médias du Canada et le CRTC. Le symposium a réuni quelques 300 participants et nous avons perçu une réelle volonté de rejoindre davantage le public d'ici en faisant une meilleure promotion de nos films, de nos émissions de télévision et de nos produits numériques. We'll also have to remain vigilant and ensure we properly balance our strengths as well as our production and promotion resources. To attract and retain audiences, we need to maintain a critical mass of films. In other words, the number and diversity of films that Canadians can access each year. I would like to end these remarks on a more personal note. I recently had two wonderful experiences as a movie lover, thanks to two films from Ontario. The first was Sarah Polley's documentary, Stories We Tell. And Sarah is with us this afternoon as well. Like many Canadians who are now seeing the movie in theaters, I was moved by this film. It's an intimate and daring work, exploring her own family's history and secrets. Sarah Polley's film is a highly accomplished piece of filmmaking and one that tells a very human story. The other film is Breakaway, which came out last year and that was a hit with audiences across the country, not only in theaters, but also, and this is worth pointing out, in our schools. According to Jack Blum, who heads Reel Canada, which organizes festivals of Canadian films in high school, Breakaway is on track to becoming one of the most popular films that Reel Canada has ever presented. Teens everywhere have been giving the movie a standing ovation. Co-writer and star Vinay Vermani often participates in the screenings, and a lot of students are inspired by this direct contact with a talented young Canadian. In closing, I'd like to salute all our creative talent, several of whom are in the audience today. You make a huge contribution to Canada's audiovisual legacy and to our quality of life. You create stories that bring us together and that leave a unique cultural heritage for future generations. Thank you. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur Roy. Je vous présente maintenant Carole Brabant. Named Telefilm's Executive Director in March 2010, Carole Brabant has worked for the organization for over 20 years. Over the past year, Carole has crisscrossed the country several times to meet with clients and stakeholders, so she really doesn't need any introduction. Madame Brabant, à vous la parole.
Merci Dave. Merci Monsieur Roy. Bonjour à tous. I've had the pleasure of meeting with many of you over the last few years, either in the context of Telefilm's consultations or at festivals, markets, and other events in which you take part. I always get a lot of these meetings. I appreciate your energy, your creativity, which are a major source of motivation for me. Like us at Telefilm, you want it to work. Today, I'll begin by talking about the major changes we've made during 2011-2012. Then I'll provide an overview of the efforts we've deployed to ensure that our investments produced the best results. S'il y a un mot qui fait maintenant partie du vocabulaire de Téléfilm, c'est bien le mot consultation. Et j'insiste parce que c'est important. C'est la base des changements que nous avons effectués en 2011-2012. Vous nous avez demandé d'être moins bureaucrate, de reconnaître votre maturité et vos succès, de vous laisser plus d'autonomie, de vous aider à diversifier vos sources de financement et de mieux promouvoir le contenu canadien. Nous avons travaillé pour améliorer l'éventail de nos programmes et de nos services. The objective of our program redesign was to have a simplified and stronger portfolio of programs that will make your relationships with Telefilm easier to manage, less time-consuming, and less costly. The redesign was developed around one key idea: to encourage success, to enhance the value of success, to reward success through all of our programs. And I'm referring here as much to those companies that contribute to our film industry's success as to those creative talent who are just emerging. Think, for example, of Animon, whose debut feature, Nuit numéro 1, was a hit in many festivals and then had a successful tour around the world. Or Leon Stars by Gardy Conte and Alan Tong, the first documentary to win Telefilm's pitch disc at the Toronto International Film Festival. Il y a donc eu des changements importants. Les entreprises qui présentent des projets en développement ont maintenant plus d'autonomie. Elles choisissent elles-mêmes les projets ou les groupes de projets qu'elles veulent porter à l'écran. Les festivals et les événements de l'industrie s'orientent de plus en plus vers une promotion active des talents canadiens. Et leurs plans stratégiques les aident à diversifier leurs sources de financement. Oui, il y a eu des changements, mais soyez assurés que les consultations se poursuivent. Pour moi, la consultation n'est pas une mode passagère, c'est un processus continu. As Michel Roy said earlier, we're always aiming for a balanced approach. We know that there is a direct link between private investment and film's performance at the box office. And we recognize that low-budget films often have tremendous cultural impact. The important thing is to maintain critical mass and produce as diverse a portfolio of film as possible. In 2011-2012, we funded 75 feature films in production and post-production, as well as 62 films at the marketing phase. We supported 49 Canadian festivals across the country and took part in 14 international audiovisual events. The Telefilm team responsible for administering the funding programs of the Canada Media Fund, they treated 444 new TV programs and 117 digital products, with several of these products designed for mobile applications. On the film side, you now have access to new financial tools. As for our new talent fund, I like the fact that individuals and businesses can choose to invest directly in the national and international development of Canadian talent. This is truly a vote of confidence for our film industry. The new micro-budget program is also a wonderful example of what we can achieve in a partnership, because professional training schools in all regions of the country are providing access to a new wave of creative talents who are plugged into digital. You know it as well as I do. There are new audiences to win over. Audiences that like different kinds of content and that have alternative ways of consuming cultural content. En cette année d'innovation et de changement, nous avons quand même réussi à maintenir nos frais d'administration à un niveau raisonnable. Nous avons réduit nos services professionnels de 30%, nos dépenses de publicité et de promotion de 20% et nos frais de voyage de 14%. Mieux encore, cette gestion efficiente nous a permis de dégager 1,2 million de dollars que nous avons réinvestis dans nos programmes. La refonte des programmes a entraîné des économies appréciables de coûts qui ont toutes été réinvestis dans les programmes. You can believe me when I say that we will continue to support a wide variety of creative talent, project, companies, and events everywhere across the country, from Halifax to Vancouver. This is a core part of our mandate. That said, we constantly want to know whether we're meeting our goals. Another way, we are fully committed to measuring the results of our efforts. That's why we launched the new Index Success. It will provide reliable data on how our portfolio is performing from one year to the other, from a commercial, cultural, and industrial standpoint. As such, it will be easier for us to adjust our strategies to stimulate demand for Canadian content. And this brings me to the second topic I'd like to discuss today. I'd like to briefly go over the major initiatives we've deployed to ensure that our investments produce the best results. The intent is clear. We want a wide variety of audiences, we want bigger audiences, and we want new audiences. We have the international recognition, the talent, the solid infrastructure. But what was missing from our equation was better promotion. 2 years ago, a Telefilm survey revealed that a minority of Canadians agreed that it was important to show and promote Canadian films. A recent survey conducted by Héritage Canada offers more encouraging results. This survey reveals that 90% of those polled say it's important for Canadians to have access to Canadian films, but only 36% think that Canadian films are well publicized or well promoted. Pour stimuler la demande de contenu canadien, la voie est clairement tracée. La clé est dans une meilleure promotion. Nos efforts au pays et à l'international sont complémentaires et nous misons beaucoup sur les talents, vos talents. The Talent to Watch series launched at the 2011 Toronto International Film Festival was very successful, and the get-togethers we organized between creative talent and the media were also a big hit. 40 reporters took part in a meet and greet with Philippe Falardeau at Sundance after it was announced that Monsieur Lazare had been nominated for an Oscar in the Best Foreign Language Film category. Canada has scored 3 finalist Oscar nominations for Best Foreign Language Film in 2 years, a great boost for our efforts to break into the U.S. markets. Sales of the 10 most popular Canadian films in the United States have risen 157% in 5 years. It's important to break into new markets, and I salute the Ontario Media Development Corporation, which invited Telefilm to take part in an exploratory mission to India. And I attended the Shanghai Film Festival, where our industry was represented by 29 films. Micheline Langto feature Pour l'amour de Dieu won the jury grand prize. At the latest MIPCOM, where Canada was the country of honor, we highlighted the fact that everything is big in Canada, our geography, but also our talent, our business opportunities, and our actors. And this was done in collaboration with many partners, including the OMDC and the Canada Media Fund. I won't go through all the list of the partners, but there was many. François Arnaud, who plays Cesare in the series The Borgias, was at MIPCOM, along with several others who acted as ambassadors. Our message was the following: there has never been a better time to connect with Canada, and I'm deeply convinced of that. Mais il faut aussi développer de nouveaux partenariats chez nous pour faire rayonner le talent et améliorer les perceptions. 2 red carpet events were held recently in Calgary and St. John's for Deepa Mehta's wonderful film, Midnight Children. And Deepa Mehta is right there, and David Hamilton as well. Thank you very much. Some 2,500 people attended the screenings. Better still, our ad campaign had a regional audience numbering in the hundreds of thousands, and the movie is still in theaters. Le secteur privé participe de toutes sortes de façons dans la promotion des talents canadiens. Au dernier Festival de Cannes, le joaillier Burks a remis ses premiers trophées diamants canadiens, Burks, à 2 jeunes actrices, Sarah Gadon et Emily Hampshire. Et Burks a rendu hommage aux réalisatrices canadiennes dans le cadre du TIFF 2012. During the past year, I've spoken to several business groups around the country, telling them that Telefilm and the audiovisual industry are also in business. I tell them that just like they do, Telefilm supports small and medium-sized businesses headed by entrepreneurs who have the courage to dream and who know how to recognize and take advantage of the right opportunities. Entrepreneurs who may work at very small companies, but who want to and who can make their mark and who think big. Collectively, you wield considerable economic power. In 2010-2011, total Canadian film and TV production was worth $5.5 billion a year, an all-time high. The industry has also generated $7.5 billion worth of GDP for the Canadian economy, and it accounted for some 128,000 jobs, high-value and well-paying jobs. There's no such thing as small success. Rather, there are many successes that more and more combine to make our film industry a force to be dealt with. Raising the profile of our cinema, it's not hard to do, but we need to have more opportunities and more people who can make it happen. Just like Vinay Vermani, who has been traveling across the country with Breakaway, you too can help to promote your stories effectively. Audiences everywhere are waiting to be swept away by your films. And don't be afraid to be bold, to look ahead. That's the best way to take off. Il faut aussi aller chercher les spectateurs là où ils sont, sur Twitter, sur YouTube et sur Facebook. Sur le plan de la pénétration, cependant, de la notoriété, de la fréquence de visionnement, la télévision demeure encore le meilleur allié du cinéma. Les 2/3 des Canadiens voient au moins un film par mois à la télévision, soit 12 films par année. Pour le cinéma canadien, c'est un beau marché à conquérir. Un sondage de Téléfilm a d'ailleurs démontré qu'un répondant sur 2 regarderait plus de films canadiens à la télévision s'ils étaient mieux annoncés. Comme vous le voyez, on revient toujours à la promotion. Michel Roy spoke about the recent symposium on Canadian content organized by Telefilm, the CMF, and the CRTC at the International Institute of Communications Conference. This event showed that more and more of us believe that we need concerted action to highlight Canadian stories and to build audiences for these stories. You'll hear more about concrete actions during the next few months. An industry-wide promotion strategy might help our film industry, take its rightful place across the country. What's certain is that we now have better tools than we did before to measure all aspects of success. The first result of our Success Index indicate that the value of our portfolio has risen 24% over 1 year. We should all be thrilled by this. We would spread the good news and continue working, all of us together. Thank you for being here in such a great number. Thank you.
Here are some of the guidelines. This is always guidelines. It's Telefilm. Questions may be asked to Monsieur Roy or Madame Brabant. You may ask your question in the language of your choice. As much as possible, we would like the Q&A period to be of general interest. We therefore ask that you please avoid questions dealing with an individual project. When preparing for this event, you can ask me those later. When preparing for this event, we ask people online to send in questions they'd like to ask Michel Roy or Carole Brabant during our meeting. If we're all in agreement, I'll start with the email questions, a couple of them, and then move on if there's some from those of you in attendance here today. So the first question is for Carole. Why are you no longer broadcasting this meeting live on the web?
We did the live broadcast on the web, but given that we're going through challenging financial challenges, we've decided that we wanted to put as much money on the screen and that we would be fulfilling our commitment to give Canadian access to Telefilm, but through this meeting and through also putting the information on the web, as Dave mentioned. So we felt that we wanted to save the money to put it on the screen.
Thank you. Here's a second question from the internet for Monsieur Roy. Can you tell us more about the Success Index? Why did you develop it, and how does it work?
Well, Success Index, yes. 2 years ago, I was going through some background information in preparation for a speech that I had to deliver. And I was astonished to find out that only 8% of the gross revenues of English Canadian films came from theatrical, that is box office. And yet we were using this indicator as sole indicator of success for our Canadian films. So I thought it was not only incomplete, but it was unfair to the producers as well. It overlooked the fact that 65% of their gross revenues came from international sales. It overlooked the fact that 15% of those revenues came from television. It overlooked the fact that a percentage of revenues came from DVD and probably other types of platforms and screens and so on. So it was not only incomplete, but it was really unfair. And we had discussion with management, which came up with this indicator, what I call a composite indicator that takes into consideration all aspects of the success of a film in reality. So how it works, 60% of the index bears on the economic measurement indicators, 40% of which is the home box office, theatrical. 30% bears on the cultural aspect of the success of a film, because we need to bear in mind that we have some films that are not necessarily huge successes at the box office, but they garner tons of rewards in festivals all around the world. And this creates a buzz for Canadian film, Canadian cinema, that other films, perhaps more successful at the box office, will benefit from. So we need to take this into consideration as well when it is time to assess the success of a film. And finally, 10% of the indicator bears on the industrial side of it, how the producer was able to seek some private investment in his production, because as Carole mentioned earlier, our records show that the films that have the most private investment in them are the most successful films as well. So this is how the indicator works.
Thank you very much. This next question for Carole, this one's from the Atlantic region. With over 75% of the development money spent, Telefilm has so far funded development of only 5 companies in Atlantic Canada, compared to 27 last year. Why should 95% of feature film producers be shut out from Telefilm's public development money? Isn't there a better answer to Telefilm's own budgetary problems than putting thousands of careers at risk?
First, I would like to reiterate what we mentioned in our speeches, that it's important for Telefilm to have a diversified portfolio. It's important for Telefilm to encourage not only experienced producers, but as well emerging talent from all the regions in the country. When we started to look at what is it that we needed to do at Telefilm to answer the comments that came from the consultation that we did, and it came from production companies from across the country, what we heard was that we needed to be less bureaucratic and give more autonomy to companies that have demonstrated that they know what they're doing. And in order to do that, we needed to come up with measurement. As a Crown Corporation, we need to make sure that we're going to be delivering the successes. We're going to be able to measure what is it that we're doing. So we started to build the index that Monsieur Roy was referring to. And our commitment is really to have money on the screen. And that's what that were the basis for the redesign of our programs, particularly the program in development. As for the statistics, one good thing about, and I know some of you might not be in agreement with that, is that in the past, in development, the money was completely spent at the end of August. We're still having money. The fund has not been completely spent yet. And so for the statistics, we will be coming up with the final analysis of this first year of the implementation of the development program. And we will comment and adjust if there are adjustments needed for the next year. It's just the first year of the redesign. I think there has been good things about it. As we mentioned, significant savings were made, and we were able to put it on the screen because the objective is really to have content on the screen. And that was one of the elements that we wanted to fix with this redesign of the programs in development. There was a very, very low rate of projects that were actually going on the screen. And as for one of the issues that had been brought to our attention when we consulted with this new way of allocating money for development was emerging talent. And we felt that by introducing the notion of mentorship, that it would be a better way to ensure that emerging production company would see their content going into production. So I think that that would be my answer for that question.
Thank you very much.
With the development eligibility that was implemented last year, is that sort of criteria going to be implemented towards the production financing or funding?
No, the eligibility criteria that have not changed in production and won't be changed.
This is an annual public meeting. You're presenting your annual report and your financial documents. We all came down to this public meeting to look at those documents and ask you questions. You're talking about money, but where's the financial report? How come all the people in this room, how can we inform ourselves to ask you questions if we don't have the annual report and the financial statements in front of us? That's my first question. I'll save another one for later.
Okay. We made a decision.
They wouldn't do it at Bell Canada, would they?
Well, we made a decision 2 years ago, again, to be more conscious of the dollars we're spending. We were publishing these annual reports, and it was very expensive, and a very little number of people were actually using those. So we've moved to a more efficient, energy-wise solution to have the information on the web, and you can print the information if you want. There are PDF versions, and I think that we've moved to that solution 2 or 3 years ago, and so far people have been very satisfied with that solution.
It wasn't there this morning.
It's going to be.
It's there now. It's online
It's
now.
online right now. We wanted to have the meeting and.
Time to read it. I went this morning to look at it.
Can you project it? Do you mind explaining to us what the definition of emerging talent is?
Okay, definition of the emerging talent.
Emerging talent, as a definition for us, is a production company or a filmmaker that has not produced a large number of films. That would be an emerging talent. It has nothing to do with the age or with, it's the background as measured with the track record of the company or the filmmaker, and that would be our definition of emerging talent. Of course, it's like any definition. It could be interpreted by the team that are there.
It could also be defined as talent of the future.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Jack Bloom. I'm the Executive Director of Reel Canada. I'm somewhat stunned to have been quoted from the stage. Just for your information, Reel Canada does bring film festivals of Canadian film to high schools across the country. Telefilm seeded the project and has been foundational in steady financing and allowing it to grow. And we're at the point where in a couple more years, if we continue, we're in 7 provinces right now. Soon we might be able to take advantage of it to promote films before they are released, the right film in the right circumstance. And I just wanted to ask Madame Brabant if you could talk a little more about these new opportunities for promotion that you have in mind and different ways in which you're hoping to raise the profile of the Canadian brand, as it were.
It's a project that started with our new strategic plan that was presented 3 years ago, and it was really linked to the idea of building the demand. As we've mentioned in many of these speeches that we've made, we realized 3 years ago that yes, we had fulfilled the portion of our mandate that was to build an industry, and you're the proof of that it is right. There are successes, there are content on our screen, but we felt that the demand was still, we were still struggling to get people wanting to watch the content. And that's where we started thinking about how we could do that. And we were very pleased that the Canada Media Fund and other partners thought the same. And in the future, we're actually, one of the in place were actually the screenings that we did We did the MIPCOM event at MIPCOM, but that's just a first step. I think that we were testing the idea, and we're very happy that we're continuing with the CMF on this, and we're hoping that there will be more. We were pleased with the results of the symposium in Ottawa, and we were pleased that there were many people that want to participate in these initiatives. So we're actually meeting tomorrow with the CRTC to see what will be the next step, and we hope that we will be able to come up. The plan is to come up at the CMPA with a more formal plan. But in the meantime, I think that what you're doing, having the screenings of Midnight Children in various regions of Canada, are all things that are really helpful to. And what you've been doing too. We're not saying that we're going to be doing the work that it's just an addition we feel that is necessary from a more global perspective.
Hi, I'm Elvira Lount. I'm a producer from BC, so I'm kind of unusual in this room today. First of all, I'd just like to say that the producers in BC feel very similar, feel the same as the ones from Ontario and the Atlantic provinces that have expressed in the media in the last day their dissatisfaction with Telefilm's new plan for development. Many of us feel that we're on a sinking boat that's been torpedoed by Telefilm, and our chances of survival as producers are slim. So just to get that out of the way, my question is, how many BC producers have received slate development funding from Telefilm? How does that compare with previous years? How does that compare with the average of the province, other regions of the country? And how has BC and the West fared in 2011-12 in your annual report as far as the percentage that BC and the West have received out of Telefilm's total funding, both development and production, promotion, etc.? Because last year it was only 6.5%, whereas 34% of the population of Canada comes from the West, and we received only 6.5% of the funding. So there's a few questions in there.
For the first part of your question, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have the final, because the money has not been completely spent. We don't have the final result for development, and we will be presenting those results when we get them, but the money has not completely been spent. What we can say now is that the money has been spent so far from all across the country. Emerging talent have been receiving money, but I don't have the specifics. So sorry, I cannot answer your question, the first part of your question, because we don't have the data completed yet.
Could I just, I'm getting cold here. Can I just give a general answer to the first part of the question, and then you can get into the specifics, maybe? I talked to you earlier about some background information that I went through 2 years ago in preparation for a speech. One of the data that also really struck me is that in English Canada, the market share, of course we're talking box office, home box office here, but the market share of the Canadian English films was 0.8%. Now, you cannot get much lower than that. And it became obvious to me that we needed to change things. When I say we, I'm not only talking about Telefilm, I'm talking about the industry, I'm talking about everybody, because the big challenge that we have now and the big challenge that we are going to have for the next few years is to make sure that we now have among the best producers, best directors, best actors, best technicians in the world. Those people can now compete with the best in the world, and they can work with the best in the world. The problem that we have is to have this recognized by the population, by the Canadian audiences, and it doesn't seem like we're there yet. We need to do something, and we need to do something together, because it's not only one group that will achieve that. It's the whole industry and the public bodies together will achieve that. We need to convince the Canadian audiences that we have a product that is among the best products in the world. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that the best products get to the screen so that we can seduce the Canadian public. And we don't make our fund allocations by regions. Really, frankly, we make our allocations by the quality of the projects that we receive. If we get more quality projects from BC than any other regions, and we've had that discussion with Marley this morning, BC will get a bigger share. We need to make sure that we get a quality project on the screen so that we can convince the Canadians that we have a product that is among the best in the world. That's my general answer.
Screenplays. How can you create quality projects in development? You're not even reading screenplays. So the industry is based on creative projects starting at the beginning with the screenplay. You're out of that business now.
Well,
so.
you know what?
Well,
The screenplay doesn't tell much, eh?
And we
At the
believe, Yves, and what we've heard from you, from everyone, and that was one thing that was consistent. And believe me, I had at least, I don't know how many people I've met, how many organizations I've met. One of the things that was consistent from Newfoundland to Halifax to Vancouver, Victoria, was that you told us that you knew what you were doing, that you had the autonomy, that you've demonstrated that you were able to determine what projects were good and what projects should be developed, and that you were tired that Telefilm would be holding hands in every steps of the process. And that's exactly, we trust and we have the confidence that you're able to determine which projects we should be financing and which project we should be looking at. And that's exactly what development is all about. You know, we're right. We're right. You're right in saying that we've raised the bar for development. We felt that our clients were production companies. That's who our clients are. And again, another thing that came out very strong in the meetings we had is, although we do have a definition for distribution, and we've been doing that for a long time, determine who is a distribution company and who is legitimate as a distribution company, we haven't done so for production company. And we've decided that for development, we should be doing it. And the bar we set was that in order to be a production company, because we're financing films, you needed to have produced a film in 5 years. One film, a film that had not been financed by Telefilm, everything goes. And because you told us that we should be taking into account, and that's true, we should be taking into account the experience that you have in television, we did so. So, yes, we cannot have autonomy. You cannot ask for autonomy at the same time you're asking for us making all the decisions. It's a balance, and that's why the index comes in handy. Believe me, we've been, and we wouldn't have been doing our jobs if we wouldn't have been looking at your track record. And we've always been doing that, always, from 1968 to today. The index, what it's doing is it's doing it in a more fair approach. We were doing it without tools. It's a tool. It's just a tool. It's not a decision maker. It's a tool. Being able to compare in a more transparent manner, because you know what are the criteria. You know that it's not, and it's all it is. Going back to the second part of your questions, yes, we know that there is a problem, and in fact we have identified that problem of the reduction in financing for particularly British Columbia. We've looked at the data, and without going into too much detail, and we're actually having a meeting with CMPA BC at the end of the month. Without going into too much details, we're not the only party involved in that. I think that we can assure you that on development, on low budget, on post-productions, the telefilm financing has not changed over the years significantly. It's quite, apart from the statistics that could vary from one year to the other, but very slightly. It's very fair. It has been, spread across the country, and there has not been any changes. Where the changes have been, they are in the national projects. And we're only able to finance 8 or 10 national projects in English every year. And the trigger for being able to get a financing in national projects is really the market. And what we've seen, and we looked into, because the statistics you're referring to is that there has been high in 2007, and it's low in 2011. But 2007, there was only 3 producers that got the bulk of the money. One is no longer in business, and the 2 other moved to Ontario. So I think that there are reasons. We're only financing high-end projects at 25% of the production budget. The 75% has to come out from somewhere else. And what we've seen is that there has been a high rate of abandoned projects, particularly in BC. We're concerned about it, and we're going to be talking and trying to see if we can find solution. But it's going to be in partnership with others, because we're not the only party responsible for that.
My name is Avi Federgren. I'm a producer and now distributor. We have a couple of issues. One is most of the films that are being financed in Canada now are budget levels of about $1 million. And the last people that are getting paid, and in most cases not getting paid, are producers. There's many producers that are deferring, and never seeing a penny, and how they can potentially sustain an existence in this industry, none of us know, and I'm one of those people. The second part of the problem is that when you're making movies like that, most distributors don't want to take on those types of films, and when they do, they only see the interior of 1 or 2 theaters for the entire country. And when you're basing decisions on success, you can't have much success if only 2 theaters are projecting your film. So there's a huge problem with that, especially, like I said, when most of the films that are being made in Canada every year, and I'm seeing a lot of them coming to me looking for a distributor and seriously begging me to take a serious look at it. They're all being made for below $1 million, and I may be their only answer.
For the first part of your question, it's a very, very competitive environment, that's for sure. We don't disagree with that. On average, we're only saying yes to 20 to 25% of the projects we're getting. We're only having the resources to finance 20 to 25% of the projects we're having. One of the moves we're making is we feel that we should be giving more money for allowing producers to be able to produce their films. So we're going to be putting more money for lower budget films, and we're expanding the definition of lower budget films to up to 2.5 million. As I was saying previously, we're not there to finance 100% of the film. We're basically on average, and it varies from the level of asking that comes to Telefilm, but we're only there from 25, on average, to around 30%. It could vary for lower budget films, but it's around 30%. And yes, it's challenging to get the rest of the financing. That's why we tried to come up with the idea of the talent fund. If we're successful, we're going to be having access to partners that will be willing to put more money. That's a tool. It's not the answer to everything. As I was mentioning, we're going to be working with the CMPA BC to see if there are other potential solutions. We've developed the tool of the micro-budget to give opportunities and possibility for producers and emerging talent to do their first film. And when you're talking about measuring success, of course, the tool with the expectation will be different depending on what is it. It's not just, and as I was saying, we're not using the success index as a black and white tool to say you're in or you're out. It's just one tool. And of course, the people that are in the room, and there are very talented people at Telefilm that are making the decisions, will use their judgment to depending on the request, depending on the size of the budget, depending on, and of course we're not asking from the same level of success for someone who's coming in with a request for a low budget film below 2.5 million and someone who's coming in with a $10 million film. That's different, and that's going to be taken into consideration. And we think that by the way we're measuring success, we're actually opening the door to more talent and more recognition from sources that are different. As an example, for a first-time filmmaker, and that's where they start their career, they often are being very successful internationally in the markets, in the festivals, and we're now recognizing that as an element of building the track record of the production companies as well as the filmmakers.
Bonjour, Madame et Messieurs. Merci pour la chance de parler à tout le monde aujourd'hui. I would first like to start with a statement on behalf of the Producers Roundtable of Ontario, and then we'll ask a question. One of the fundamental beliefs of PRO is more for the many, not a lot more for the very few. The way money is allocated by Téléfilm Canada, though they won't give us the numbers, and we've asked, oh, I promise you we've asked, is that they are giving too much to the people at the top of the economic food chain and not enough to the emerging and mid-level. We're willing to work with Mr. Moore, Monsieur Trudeau, Monsieur Le Malcaire, and artists from all sectors to ensure that this practice is not allowed to continue. PRO has 3 requests, which I know we've sent in but have yet to receive a response to, which I'm very disappointed to say. One is that companies that secure development financing for this year should be moved to the end of the line for next year. PRO Ontario, PRO Atlantic Canada, and I guess I should give you the warning that PRO Western Canada is on its way, should both be given a permanent seat on Telefilm's working group. Before Telefilm's proposed funding evaluation is implemented, it should also undergo an independent audit that is funded by Telefilm or Heritage Canada and shared with the industry. I understand that boards need people with a variety of experience. My question is, roughly what percentage of your board members have experience in the film industry? And is this the right mix of expertise to guide Telefilm through our rapidly changing industry?
Do you want to answer that?
Well, as far as the board is concerned, I can answer this. I'm sure your applause are not for me. This part of the answer is that no board member of Telefilm can have some interest in the audiovisual industry. This is the new, it is a conflict of interest rule that was implemented, I believe, was 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago maybe when I came in. So we cannot have on our board a member who has a personal interest in any audiovisual industry. I'm sorry, I don't. Well, but I can tell you one thing though. The board members of Telefilm, some of whom have background knowledge about the industry, are very dedicated people, very generous with their time. They're very devoted, and they work very hard for the well-being of the industry. That I can assure you. But it is very difficult to find a person who would have a very specific knowledge of the industry without having any interest in that industry. This is the challenge that we are faced with.
These are
Just a quick follow-up question. Like, in terms of giving us a response to our request, like, and you know, again, I see this across levels. Like, we were just at a telefilm meeting, and one of the things that most frustrated as a producer, and I get that you want to celebrate that you have money in November. I mean, personally, I would be like, get it out into the industry, let's create some jobs. But this person had been waiting since May. So I appreciate that the new development index was supposed to expedite things, but I mean, do you feel like it is?
Well, for some it has in the past, and again, it might not be a specific answer to your question, but in the past, decisions around development were taking on average 18 weeks, and we felt that this was something that was unacceptable. I must say that the process, and again, it's the first year. Let the
People, I get that it's just a year, but for our economic environment, like, I can't go a year without a check. These people, you can't wait from May.
well.
And my other question, just as a follow-up, when can we expect a response to our request?
We are very diligent in responding to requests. As for the first one, I suspect that we would have to consult, because I don't know if some of your colleagues in the room would be approving that if they get development 1 year, they won't get it next year. Well, I think that we will be responding. I think that we make a point to be very diligent in the way we're responding. As for the pro, we've always just starting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but starting from May, we've had at least 5 meetings with you. So I think that we are very responding to your request. We cannot come up and have all the answers on the following day you're sending the request. We will be working on what you're suggesting. We will come up with an answer, but as I was saying, at least for one of them, it will require further work, because I suspect that it will not be, I don't know, but there will be certainly consultation to be made.
Yes,
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for being here.
Telefilm has the approach to encourage micro-budget, encourage investment from the private sector. One of the biggest assets I believe Telefilm has is unproduced, developed projects over 30 years, more than 30 years. If that is really the goal, and that Telefilm makes negligible money back from productions that go into production that were developed by Telefilm but are not financed by Telefilm, it's a very, very small number, if at all. I know it is some, because I paid some, but it's a very, very small number. And when there are so many producers out there that could create micro-budget projects that are getting private sector investment, that are going to new markets, if Telefilm would consider forgiving the repayment of loans, development loans for projects that they're not going to invest in, and turning that development loan into an investment into the project, so that you don't have to pay back. Quite often I see projects that have $100,000 worth of development on them that Telefilm's never going to finance, but you could take that project, create a web series, or create some other project with it, if you didn't have to pay back the $100,000 to Telefilm, you could just put that in as an investment. You're not getting the money back anyway. So why wouldn't you consider forgiving those loans as a repayment and just investing them, and open up opportunities for every producer in this room and every producer that's been producing for 30 years with Telefilm to take those projects in a new market. Some of those projects are 10 years old, and there didn't exist a web that you could put projects out on. Why don't you use that money it's not real money for you, you're not getting it back, invest it into the projects, and let producers do what we can in the private sector?
We will certainly be looking into. We will take that as a suggestion. Just in that way of thinking, I think that We've been doing some actions. One of the things that we've done is, and it might not work for Ontario because of the provincial tax credit, but since April 1st, we're not anymore we're offering the options for producers that we don't necessarily acquire rights, property ownership rights in the production. So that's something that we've done in order to send back the full ownership of the projects to the production company. The other thing that we're working on as well...
That will then turn into assistance, though, for producers under the tax, if Bill C-10 ever gets...
Yeah, only in Ontario, but in other jurisdictions it isn't, so we give you the choice.
We are working on projects to, and the option would be to provide, because going back to the access and the fact that some of those projects are not, or some of those films are not accessible anymore, to the point that we would be getting a digital copy, we would revert back the rights to the production company. We're working on that. It's a little bit more complicated because we're a Crown corporation and it requires the authorization from a Treasury board, but we're working on that. So yes, we will be taking that into serious. We will be analyzing that, and we'll come back to you on that one.
Mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, the official portion of Téléfilm Canada's 2012 public meeting is now over. Check out our 2011-12 annual report microsite, which is now live. You can visit www.daringtochange.ca. We invite you to meet the board of directors and Téléfilm's team right here who are with you today. Finally, don't forget your copy of Kim Nguyen's Rebelle, the movie representing Canada in the Oscar race for Best Foreign Language Film this year. Merci de votre attention et de vous être déplacés pour assister à notre Assemblée Publique Annuelle. Merci, bonjour.